And here's an insider's brief about the art of negotiation and generating more profitable agreements. Now, it's a given that we probably would all be wealthy and debt-free if we had good deals and agreements from our businesses from the very start. For me, I know I'd be a bazillionaire if I had every deal that I ever started. And while I've done a lot of sales, for me, deals usually end with a no. Our guest today says that's where it all starts. We speak with Todd Camp. He's a master negotiator whose company has coached over 100,000 people, including the FBI department and Silicon Valley executives. Hi, Todd. How are you today?
All right, Tony. Thanks for having me. How are you?
It's great. I'm looking forward to learning a lot, and I can go so many different ways. So maybe start here. We have challenges today, and you mentioned this off here just before we started. There's some big challenges that face us today in negotiations. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so first little context. We are a negotiation coaching firm. There's an element of training in what we do, but we prefer to assist our clients from the trenches working on their real deals. So we kind of see very clearly what tactics and what gamesmanship is going on the other side of the table. So the reason I bring that up is because it's important. A lot of executives, business leaders today, I believe there's three main challenges they're really up against. First is they have a flawed mindset as to what negotiation is. Most people, the majority of the people, quite frankly, on the earth believe compromise is required in negotiation. And, a lot of people see us as being a little bit counterintuitive because we don't believe it's required. Keyword being required. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And, I won't sit here and say our clients never compromise. But what we see is a lot of people prepare with it. They go to it too quickly. And so they have a misconception of what it really is, what it really is. So when we see, or hear the word no, from a coaching perspective, we believe that's the best answer you can get because it keeps the status quo. You know exactly where you stand. And if you know where you stand, you can then plan and prepare the next agenda with the right folks. So, the word no to us is one decision at one point in time. A lot of people get fear, stress, anxiety from hearing that no or saying that no in some instances. But the more comfortable you become with it and understand you have the right to veto, we call it, you have the right to say no. As you get comfortable with that, we see, people make a lot of progress and get things done they didn't know were attainable.
Okay, I'm thinking with that, and it's very interesting. Yes, if you get a flat out no, then at least you've gone somewhere and you've got something to handle. From my experience in sales, the no is the person doesn't call you back, doesn't email you back, you don't hear anything, it just kind of just dies, and then you go, okay, well, that's a no. And I'm speaking like from way back then over a long period of time. So I think, not to be silly, but getting just a no, I think is great because at least you know where you've gone, right? But there's more to it. And I'm not quite sure where exactly to go from. So maybe you can help me. Like, where do you go with this? Like, you're at this point, you either feel the no or you know that it's not going to go that way, and it becomes very tough. So how do we get past that?
Well, a lot of this is what type of sales are you in? What type of negotiation are you in? Is it a long-term business relationship you're negotiating? Is it a one-time interaction where you won't be seeing the person anymore? Usually, if you build the right agendas very early on, and you give a person the right to push back or disagree or say no or decline what you're proposing, usually we don't see it end there. We actually see our clients able to re-engage and find out, where did we lose you? Where did things go south? What what are you saying we're not saying? How did we fail this process? But early on agendas are really critically, important to people. If you let someone know ahead of time that you're not going to, for example, you let someone know ahead of time you're not going to be providing the proposal and the details of your pricing and exactly how you would deliver your product until you have an opportunity to meet with all the stakeholders in the decision-making process. So we let people know that very early and often in hopes that they will eventually facilitate an introduction or get us in front of the folks that are going to be counting on, whatever it is you're negotiating for. So there's certain agendas that we push really hard on setting very early on to where hearing the word no and saying the word no really isn't that concerning, just because the type of relationship we've built, shooting each other straight. So much of this world believes negotiation is just tricks or tactics, and because of that, fear, anxiety, stress, people kind of equate that with the word. But the more you get comfortable with it, the more you ask for it, the more you let the other party know, not only do you have the right to push back when I disagree, or if there's something I'm seeing I can't get on board with, if it's okay, I'll bring that to your attention. How acceptable is that? People
Kind of the way I see things is as long as the prospect is speaking with you, it seems it goes to reason that you've got something that is of interest to some degree because they're still there speaking with you. Now, I presume the ideal setting is you're sitting there in the office with the prospect. I mean, that's beautiful. Sales are not necessarily done that way anymore. There's sales that are more difficult, and it could be the topic as well. Are there any topics? And I'm not trying to be silly, but we understand the buying a car type of a sales approach and where that can go to negotiation, but you're there looking on the lot because you want a car. So the dealership almost has that captive prospect because you're really looking for something, and they probably have a little more bandwidth to go. But today we do a lot of our shopping more and more on the internet, and that makes it kind of tough. How do you got any ways to deal with that? Because it's just like you click something, if you don't get the response you want, you're on somebody else's website. You'll switch over.
So to be honest, most of our coaching is not in, most of our coaching and the clients that we support, it's not very transactional types of negotiations. It's usually up against a larger company that appears to have all the resources in the world, and therefore we see it as they have power and leverage over us. But there's a reason why we're at the table. There's a reason why they want to negotiate with us. So those types of deals where you're actually building a relationship, where once you sign the agreement, you're actually going to have to deliver on it, and you're going to have to work with those teams for a long period of time. So those are really the types of negotiations that we support. The transactional ones, we do have some tools to use, behaviors, what to say, how to say it. But the majority of our focus is, you have an executive team. They're trying to mergers and acquisitions. They're trying to sell their company to a larger entity because they see an opportunity where if they acquire your technology, it's going to allow them to leapfrog some of their competitors and gain market share very quickly. Or they look at you and they say, if we don't buy this company, there might be a few others we could look at. But the reality is where they are in the market, we would have to spend millions and probably multiple years to catch up to what this company has already built. So therefore, they approach our clients about potential acquisition, and different stakeholders get involved. So a lot of negotiations with corporate development, C-suite folks. There's a lot of different players. Sometimes investment bankers are on the other side. When you manage all of those negotiations, what we find is, which is interesting to us, is that the most difficult negotiation is always the internal one. Specifically in acquisition negotiations, coming to agreement with your coworkers, your co-founders, your board, your investors on what it is you want is very difficult. And to us as coaches, it's very important knowing what you want. So a lot of what we do is help our clients negotiate the most difficult negotiation, which is the internal one, to get that alignment. Because once everybody's aligned, it becomes much easier to go ask for exactly what it'll take to get it done. But until then, it's difficult, you know, which gets into another topic of what who has the advantage, you know, the person that goes first or the person who reacts to whatever the offer is. So a lot of times, you know, people prefer to let the other party go first. And, you know, we support that. We support that and have ways of thinking about that, how to react to it. But we actually don't have a problem if you go first, if you have three things. One is, you know exactly what you want, which a lot of times is very difficult. Two is you've confirmed what your purpose is, meaning you've confirmed exactly what it is they want you to provide them and how they want you and your team to deliver on that. If you have that, that's another key ingredient. Third is you're dealing with the authority. So if you know what you want, you know they see very clearly what the opportunity looks like and how you're going to deliver on it, and you're dealing with the authority, we're perfectly fine if you want to go first. But
I like that.
Yeah, where we're a little different is we're going to look for no at least 3 times before we would recommend you consider making a concession or thinking about it differently.
It's quite something, and there's so much more on this. We could do a series on this. For more information, please go to campnegotiations.com. That's the word camp, C-A-M-P, and the word negotiations.com. Todd, thanks so much for hopping on the show and talking to us about this. It's a huge topic. I think we've whet some interest here, and I hope more people find out about it and learn how to negotiate better.
Well, thank you for having me, Tony. The reality is we could talk about it for 2 days. There's so much here.